Well, hello there and welcome to the bedroom of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers for April 29th, the day of the heavy image. All right, and here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of the heavy image. We have what appears to be, what is it? Oh, it appears to be the likes of a mongoose with a scroll under its chin and its left paw on the head of a boar. That said, does that speak to the day of heavy image? Well, perhaps in concept, all right? That said, oftentimes these visual representational images are rather enigmatic. It's hard to make heads or tails of why they chose as much. Sometimes it seems to line up pretty on the nose, but here, who's to say? That said, not altogether all too important. I just like folks to kind of see what's here on the page in front of me. Keep you part of the dynamic going on off camera if you like. That said, what is important is it's April 29th, and hence it's somebody's birthday, all right? And so if your birthday is April 29th, it's important around here. Wishing you a happy birthday, all right? So happy birthday. That said, maybe this video finds you late, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may happen to be. But if that is the case, I just want to say I hope you had a happy birthday. But for everybody else who's joining us out of curiosity or more ideally to celebrate, well, I just want to say hello, welcome, and hope you enjoy yourself. That said, before I kick off the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right. This is the Diecast birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake. But if you've been here before or you just want to get to the redirect, hey, no big deal. Just jump ahead in the chapters, all right? I'll be here rolling dice because I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled us, what could it be? Boom, a 3 and a 4 for a 7. All right, now what is synchronicity? You may be wondering if you stuck around. Well, my friends, as I hear it told, the universe or the higher powers that be, if you like, will oftentimes put things in our path to help us manifest our goals or achieve our aspirations. But oftentimes we got the blinders up to what's going on around us as we're very narrow-sighted or singular of mind going off towards the job or errands or those sorts of things, or other priorities, if you like. So we may be apt to miss the things that are in our path is what I'm trying to say. But how do we recognize such things? Well, we need to come to some kind of agreement with the higher powers that be of some kind of signpost, something to help us recognize as much. That's right, daily numbers, all right? That said, you don't have to go with what I rolled for you. The intention is there. But if you want to try this out outside of looking for your daily numbers out there to let you know you're on the right path, and you want to dive in more into the weeds, feel like, hey, get a pair of dice of your own, all right? So you can ascribe directional values to number sets, say 1 through 3 for north, 4 through 6 for east, and so on. And also time limits with which to go in those directions. And if you want to go even further, maybe evens and odds for no's or lefts and rights, it's yeses, yeah, etc. So that said, once you have all that pinned down, hey, pick out a place maybe you want to explore and then set out. But like I said, drop the blinders outside your numbers creeping up into your day, say on an address or a temperature sign that seems out of whack, but there's your numbers, right? Hey, you might start to see a theme develop. Take the mongoose or the boar, for instance. Hey, maybe some of them cross your path. I assume they might have to escape out of a zoo, depending upon where you live, because they're usually over in like Asia, I believe. But hey, you know what? That would be notable, all right? That said, it can be anything. I'm just going with the example here in front of me, so be on the lookout. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be the real thing. It could be the picture of as much on the side of a bus or up on a mural on the side of a building or maybe in a shop window, okay? Whatever it may be, just take note of such things, all right? Because, again, that's the universe, I'd like to argue, telling you're on the right path. That said, maybe you get the dice rolls going and 5, 6, 7 times, you're not seeing much of anything. Hey, never fret. Just take some time, compose yourself, look around. Maybe no sooner you bend down to roll the dice. Hey, maybe somebody stops, asks you what you're doing. Hey, just be cordial, tell them what you're up to. Lay it on my shoulders. Say this crazy guy on the internet told me about this synchronicity walk type deal to try out for my birthday. I know it's nuts, but they might even be apt to agree, but they might also say, you know what's even crazier than that? You might say, what's this? Hey, it's my birthday too. And it's like, oh, really now? Hey, you know what's even crazier? They may be apt to put their day down and join you because maybe nothing special is going on for them on their birthday either, all right? And what's even better about that is, as I hear it told, the more people who are focused on the same thing, well, you're apt to beget greater results. And hey, maybe the universe was just lining you up to meet a new friend, all right? Rather synchronous. That said, that's the idea. I think you get it. So get out there, shake up your life a little bit. And if you see, taste, touch, smell, hear, or intuit just a little bit of such happenstance, you'll understand why I brought it up. It's almost magical. All right. That said, that's it. Let's get on with the birthday read. That's why you're here. Your month is April. Your day is the 29th. Your sign is 8 to 10 degrees Taurus of the Taurus I period specifically. And your quality and element is fixed earth. All right, here we go. April 29, the day of the heavy image. Those born on April 29 are extremely aware of the profile they maintain in the world. It is as if they carry a mirror around with them, which provides a reflection of how they appear to others. This, of course, means that when presenting themselves, they can craft an image that works to their advantage. April 29, people value their good opinion in the eyes of society, friends, and family. This does not mean to imply that they are insecure. Usually they have a pretty clear idea of who they are and what they want from any situation. Usually they, I already read that. Sorry, that. Because their projective talents are so developed, they often succeed in getting the image that others have of them in line with the image that they want to project. The word often, however, does imply that they fail from time to time, a circumstance which causes them a good bit of discomfort. And although they have highly dominant tendencies, it is less a desire to lead, which customarily motivates April 29 people, than a need to embody a certain position, ideal, or a stance from which they are more difficult to pry loose than their own shadow. Consequently, when they go through periods of change, it may be difficult for those around them to accept this new person because of an absolute identification with the old person. Thus, change of image is not only difficult for April 29 people to handle, but for their friends and family as well. From time to time, those born on this day can feel imprisoned in their own predictability and steadfastness. Longing for a break out of this impulsive or spontaneous acts can occur, but they somehow are inhibited in their ability to do so. And April 29 people are very dependable, and as such often find themselves in positions of responsibility. And indeed, it can become a burden to them to always be counted on, especially when they would enjoy nothing more than being playful, perhaps even silly. It is during these lighter moments that they can relax their outer persona and really be themselves. And those friends and relatives with whom they share these good times are cherished greatly by April 29 people. Sometimes only one special person fulfills this need, and the death or departure of this person is keenly felt. And because of their interest in manifesting a personal image in the world, April 29 people generally show great interest in clothes, manner, tone of voice, as well as posture. And those born on this day are very perceptive in reading and critiquing the image of others. And then the unusual April 29 person who wishes to convey an image of complete disregard for an appearance may appear disheveled or wear shabby clothes, but will do so in a most deliberate manner. And if an April 29 person desires wealth or fame, he or she will usually manifest the appearance of one so empowered. Let's see, and if private happiness supersedes ambition, the lifestyle and image chosen will be far less charged. In any case, those born on this day must avoid contradictory goals like the plague, since the risk of tearing the personality to pieces is very real. All right, quite the interesting birthday breakdown today, to be sure. There's a lot of things I went into this with that were kind of blowing my hair back insofar as expectations I would have with regard to the period as we were getting into it, because there's a little bit of a through line theme with certain things, and this kind of bucks a little bit of that. Not a lot, but just in interesting ways. That said, I like to get into a little bit of a commentary here and relate similarities to the period writ large, days past, also the book on the whole. So let's get into what I had to say and a little bit of a reiteration here if you like. So here we go. April 29th, the day of heavy image. You're said to be extremely aware of the image that you maintain in the world. It's as if you carry around a mirror to see how you appear to others, which, as it happens, there may be a reason for that we'll get to here shortly. Having said that, with this in mind, I don't know about the reading having written it in this particular way would naturally follow from that premise. That you would necessarily carefully craft your image when presenting yourself. Let's say to take advantage of it anyhow. Now for you, I can totally believe it, knowing what I know about the days previous and the theme that kind of follows through for the period. But having explored it here for the past few days, that's why I can kind of say that. But for someone who's just coming to this fresh, I don't know, maybe it's a grammatical kind of anomaly that a lot of folks wouldn't notice. But for me, I'm kind of like, seems like they're starting off with a premise that hasn't been loaded up to yet. Kind of like you're starting off cooking without ingredients, to say. But writing structure notwithstanding, the reading claims you have a good idea of who you are and what you want in any given situation. But still value good opinions of others also. And I'm glad they mention this because as it happens, this isn't something that's been really coming up for the past few days, all right? Especially for the personalities of maybe a week or even more, considering Aries, they're pretty self-indulgent individuals as well. So the opinions of others didn't really factor in. So we may be changing a little bit as Taurus proceeds. So like I said, I'm glad they brought this up. And it's also, what do we got here? It's also a trait that they're told to cultivate. Here you've got that. So there you go. That's not a recommendation you'll probably be getting. That said here, but while you may be different in that respect, you are similar in having highly dominant tendencies, okay? So far, Taurus has been a period of dominance, all right? What is different is how it's realized day to day, all right? But this position or ideal you wish to obtain and then hence possess versus leadership, and in turn, that I would say is the very unique aspect that pertains to you. Compared to your peers. All right. So also unique is this complicated relationship with change specifically, both as it applies to you and your loved ones. Issues with change have come up in spits and spatters, but not to this degree. All right. They really drilled down on it for you, which there also may be a reason for that we'll get to here shortly also. Despite this, you're still said to be dependable, even if you may not like to be depended on. But where you're also different is your ability to share shake your persona and have some fun with your friends and family. All right. A lot of folks, they're born in these days previous, they struggle with this to a huge degree. It often becomes a recommendation for them to try to have some fun, try to shake this aspect of you being too serious, too dominant. And from that, I think it's pretty important too. But you've already got that baked in, it sounds like. That said, the reading maintains insofar as, I'm sorry, I got off track here. This isn't the most well-rounded reading. I kind of mentioned that to say they really focused on these image aspects here in the breakdown, all right? While it's interesting to hear all of this, and especially insofar as the dynamics are concerned as it applies to dominance, I really would have liked to have seen more focus on what you're like in your relationships outside of the little snapshot they gave us. A lot of times they'll get into these reads and they'll kind of give a macro image, like I was saying with a well-rounded birthday. But here it was a lot more micro. And what's interesting about that is that's usually reserved for like a sun-oriented day, which was yesterday. And yesterday they got the macro, all right? And so I had to make mention of it. This is weird. They don't normally write it out like this. For you, it was more focused on this image aspect, this theme. Pretty interesting, all right? That said, it's not unheard of for them to do it, but I just like to make mention of it so you kind of have an idea, like maybe where they shortchanged you a little bit, so to speak. But that said, That's what I had to say about the breakdown in no small part. Let's move on to your numbers and your planets. A little bit of astrology in the bargain here. Let me get the book centered so I can stay in frame here for you. And those born on the 29th of the month are ruled by the number 2, as 2 plus 9 equals 11 and 1 plus 1 equals 2, and by the moon. All right, and since those ruled by the number 2 are often good co-workers and partners rather than leaders, the projective qualities of April 29 people may be utilized in embodying the ideals of their family or work group. Such number 2 influences may also act as a brake on individual initiative and action. This is underlined by the moon having strongly reflective and passive tendencies, and by the added feminine influence of Venus, the ruler of Taurus. The secondary number 11, 2 plus 9 equals 11, gives a grounding in the physical plane, along with the earthy influence of Taurus. As well as an interest in double occurrences and mirror phenomena. All right, hey, missed opportunity with the dice there, it sounds like. Oh well, I don't plan that out. So that said, there's your numbers and your planets. Let's dive back into some notes here. See what I had to say about it. A little bit of, did they personalize this one for you? A little bit, insofar as they changed up the copy quite a bit. So that's an earmark that they personalized it. Sometimes it's a little bit of a copy-paste job. They just change the dates out. But I'd say they personalized this one for you a little bit because there's some interesting dynamics that we'll get to. The number 2 in the moon, the celestial body that not only stirs up the tides, but also human emotion, as mentioned elsewhere in the book. Probably wolves, too, I would assume, all right? That said, it's also said to have a reflective nature, okay, and symbolize the world of dreams as it happens. It's also traditionally feminine in orientation and lends to empathetic human tendencies and probably your capacity, as the reading claims, to carry this mirror around that provides a reflection of how you appear to others. The moon is also a softer, more passive and airy kind of energy. Kind of tends to lean in towards a more idealistic kind of nature. Same with the planet Neptune, the ruler of dreams and visions, all right? And I only make mention of that because the two are quite similar. And oftentimes a conflict arises when there's a more earthy planet in the dynamic, like we have today, all right, with the planet Venus. So with the concern for dreams and the like, when coupled to Venus, a more grounded, also feminine, earthy nature, they mention there's a resulting break on your individual initiative as well as your action. And I can also see where this frustrating longing to break out of an impulsive or spontaneous act that they mentioned in the breakdown, and this feeling of imprisonment that was also mentioned, I could see maybe that's where that comes from. All right. Also, the difficulty that may come about when you're undergoing this process of change. Okay. I would say for Venus, being as it's grounded, might not want that so much. Whereas the moon, it's a little bit more about dreams, change, shaking things up a little bit more. Maybe not as aggressively as Neptune, because it's a little bit softer, but I'd say it's still in the mix. And that may be what's contributing to the conflicts that I mentioned that I would elaborate on there. So pretty interesting dynamic. Don't know that they mentioned too much about Venus, but it's the planet of love, harmony, beauty, and what else? When it's coupled to certain planets, there's a bit of a balance, all right? To say Mars specifically, but that doesn't apply to you, so it doesn't even bear mentioning. I don't know why I brought it up. That said, that essentially rounds out the numbers in the planets. Let's move on to your tarot. That's right, one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, but hey, it's here in the book, so hey, why don't we take a minute, see what it has to say. Oftentimes, it'll serve as a little bit of a metaphor that almost seems to inform the breakdown. Other times not, so we'll just have to see. But it's not something they cherry pick, it's on a cycle, and so let's just see what you got here. The second card of the major arcana is the Priestess. Shown seated on her throne, calm and impenetrable, she is a spirited woman who reveals hidden forces and secrets, empowering us with that knowledge. Favorable qualities of this card are silence, intuition, reserve, and discretion. Negative values are secretiveness, mistrust, indifference, and inertia. These last two items can signify a refusal of April 29 people to change. All right, hey, they buttoned it for you there. Doesn't often happen with the tarot. Otherwise, the copy-paste job boilerplate all the way through. That said, let's see if I can add anything to it here for you. The Priestess, who reveals hidden forces, secrets, and empowers others with that knowledge. Perhaps not just your projective abilities, but your otherwise softer brand of asserting dominance, all right? And also your ability to identify what's required in any given situation, all right? So at least those to help achieve your own respective ends. And then the image that you must assume to fit that mold. I would say that that could be that sacred knowledge, all right? Because it's not something a lot of people have with them, all right? But you seem to have this intrinsic approach to it. That said, the reading didn't outright say you have your finger on the pulse of society, as gets mentioned when people have such a similar abilities, I would argue. But reading between the lines, I'd say that you do have an uncanny ability to find where to fit, all right? Which I would then argue ties in with that positive of silence, intuition, and reserve. Also the discretion there. But as stated with the planetary conflicts, I can see where inertia might set in, the ability to not have the drive forward or get stuck from the ostensible weight of non-movement, but also perhaps indifference or an inability to make decisions, if you like. So gotta be mindful of that. But that said, I think it applies rather well. They pick these things randomly, or not randomly. It's on a cycle. They don't pick them randomly, so or intentionally either. So interesting when they line up, and I would say today it has. And for the better part of the week, these things have been lining up, interestingly enough. That said, there's your tarot. Let's move on to your health. All right, here we go. Those born on April 29 generally follow or even embody the social trends of the times. Thus, in today's health-conscious world, they are likely to pursue the kind of moderate exercise and diet that will keep them healthy and fit. The condition of their voice, and therefore of their throat and vocal cords, it says in parentheticals, is of particular importance to them. There may be a tendency to overindulge in grains, particularly bread, it says, and a hankering after traditional earthy Taurus foods, to say meat, stews, potatoes, and gravy. But they could be moderated, it says. And because of this sensitivity of the number 29 people to the moon, hormonal imbalances should be observed carefully and treated if necessary. All right. A little bit of a defying convention here with how the health entries are typically written. Interesting. It kind of seems to be the theme of the day in no small part. That said, let's get into the notes, see what I had to say here. You're said to embody or follow social trends. All right, looks like I was right. There it was. They usually save that kind of thing for the breakdown itself, not the health, all right? Moderate exercise, they said, sounded like a recommendation, but it sounded more like that's something you choose for yourself. As it happens, exercise recommendations for the better part of Aries was moderate to light, moderate. And then as we transitioned into Taurus, mild to moderate. What's interesting about Aries is those folks are ruled by Mars, and so they would get aggressive, strenuous exercise. But for some reason, they wanted them to temper it back, ostensibly because they were movers and shakers, and they got the exercise they needed just in their everyday goings-on. I only make mention of that because as we've progressed through, we hit the Aries-Taurus cusp. All of a sudden, these issues with weight gain and sedentary lifestyle were creeping up, and then mild to moderate kind of came into the equation. It's interesting mild's in there because I'm not quite sure. You think they might need to step it up a little bit, but not the case. Again, they didn't really bring it up to you specifically as a recommendation. They just said more about you making that decision for yourself. That's not typical, so it's pretty interesting there. That said, concern for the voice and throat. That makes sense considering the body areas of Taurus are the ears, the throat, thyroid, the palate and the like. So even the likes of singing was recommended for one individual for therapy. A little bit of enjoyment there. So maybe take note of that also. What else do we have? But it's interesting moderation of earthy Taurus foods are mentioned. All right. That said, they brought up gravy and bread, and a lot of the times, ever since Aries Taurus cusp, the food recommendations that have been coming in are these earthy foods, but more to say fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. I don't remember seeing meaty stews and gravy, so maybe be mindful of such things. But interesting that they expanded on it a little bit. What's also novel is this mention of hormonal imbalances. All right, on account of the moon specifically, they said. I would have to assume it's probably also has to do with Venus, which is a feminine aspect to it as well. And because this hasn't popped up in some time except for April 24th also, which was a dual Venus rulership day. So it must have something to do with the idea of the feminine energies coming in and stirring things up. This book was also written by two men, so that might have something to do with it too. I don't know. But again, interesting that that's when it popped up for feminine energy planets. So that said, that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. All right, here we go. Let go of your image from time to time. Get down in the sandbox, no matter what your age, and play with the rest of the kids. Pay more heed to your heart and less to the impression you are making. Be careful of how you exercise your power over others. All right, there we go. There's some advice. Quick, fast, down and dirty. All right, let's get into what I had to say about what they had to say. Bear with me, I had to write it in the book, so I had to write it kind of tiny. I might stifle a little more than I usually do. Here we go. They said, let go of your image from time to time. All right, typical advice tends to go or lean the other way from the strengths, okay? And here, that's the chief concern, I would say, right? Concerned with your image, put that down once in a while, it sounds like. Probably a warning not to get too carried away with yourself. Thus far in the period, people can get a bit carried away with, what do we have here? Themselves and their work, and or in your case, you maybe take on this too much of a frustrating responsibility, as they mentioned. That was a little bit of something that's been coming up since Aries, all right? These folks are so gung-ho after, driving hard and fast that they stress themselves out, all right? And they just keep going after it. And we transition into Taurus, it didn't really stop. And the stress recommendations they're still there. So I have to assume that might be part of it. What else do I have? Get down in the sandbox, they said, all right? You're one of the few people in so many days who are said to entertain the idea of having fun as it happens, all right? Kind of hinted at a little bit. Yesterday was another one, but again, it was only kind of subtly mentioned. So don't let that gift escape you if you have it in you, all right? Because too many people previous to you, they don't have it. So really seize that if you can, I would say. They said, pay more heed to your heart and not your impression. Same argument, I would say. People may start to pick up on a phony kind of air, affectation, if you like, if you don't show them what's behind the facade, all right, or that public persona you put on. And they might also start to feel as though you're not your true self around them, and some people, they might take a little bit of offense to that. It's also, maybe you've met phony people, and it's just like, it feels weird, all right? So you don't necessarily want other folks to feel that, I would say. Unless you're just so skilled at your thing, which you may be, that, you know what, I don't let it down, they can't even tell. I don't know, but pick your poison, salt to taste, give it some consideration. Be careful how you exercise your power, they said, all right? Considering a lot of people in this period rouse antagonists for otherwise meddling in other people's lives, I would think this is where this is coming from. Telling them how to live, maybe even so far as directing them as to what to do, specifically with the children, all right? This came up in the latter part of Aries, the Aries 3 specifically. The rest of the period, they aroused antagonists left and right, but for different reasons. But Aries 3 and Aries Taurus cusp, and it's still carrying through to today, they kind of meddle a little bit, or they over-nurture on account of Venus coming in here in that respect. And it doesn't sit right with some people. There's a time that they need to let go. And I'm assuming that's what this is here for you, though they don't directly mention it. But that said, if that's not what it is, meddling in other people's lives, let them, what was the advice? Be careful how you exercise your power. Just good advice in general, if that's not what it was. All right. So that said, that's been what I had to say about your advice. Let's move on to your meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get something to think about. All right. Get the book centered, myself in frame. We're good to go. Let's go here. Musical instruments are mirrors of reflection. All right. One more time. Musical instruments are mirrors of reflection. Interesting. I don't know what to make of this one for you. They've been stumping me the past few days. Not a single idea. Sometimes by the time I read it that second time, I have an idea. Not today. That said, even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. It's your birthday, your meditation. I don't think it would serve you if I gave you my ideas about it. All right? It might sway you one way or the other. It's just for you to think about on your birthday. That said, your meditation in the can, let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's see where you got the girth in the bargain and where otherwise maybe a little more atrophied, all right? Your strengths, you're dependable, you're self-possessed, they say, and socially adept. All right, interesting. But your weaknesses, what could those be? Did we pick up on them? Let's hear what they have to say here. Sometimes I can be surprised. Self-involved, vain, and over serious. Interesting. I don't know that I picked up on over serious. And I mean, we could assume vain, but I don't know that it was, that's kind of an assumption. You don't know. That said, a lot of times I like to make the argument that our strengths can help us overcome our weaknesses. But I also like to make the argument that our weaknesses can serve as strengths and unto themselves. So let's see if I can make the case here today. I might flounder a bit, but bear with me, because these weaknesses, boy, lately they've been pretty negative, all right? Pretty hard to see the strengths where they lie in there, but I did a little work. Let's see if we can make this work out here. This said you're dependable as a strength. How can that help you overcome your weaknesses? Well, I think in most cases we think of ourselves as dependable as someone we can depend on. For others, right? Well, think about depending upon yourself when it comes to fixing your weaknesses, all right? You know you get the job done in the outside world. Now what about the inner world, all right? It's all about understanding yourself and nature, by and large, as a big through theme in the book. Self-awareness. It wasn't mentioned here today, but hey, it's the through line theme for the day. Also the Buddhist kind of mentality there, understanding yourself and nature. So be dependable for yourself, improve your weaknesses. Self-possessed. What does that mean? How is it a strength, right? Well, here I have the definition for you. You're calm, confident, composed of demeanor, and you're also especially in challenging situations, from what I read. And so how is that a strength? Well, you can calm those around you, all right? And you possess an introspective self-reflection. Oh, how about that? That lines up nicely. You also allow you to maintain your goals. All right, so once again, we're looking inside. We're holding the mirror up and we're seeing ourselves, not just how it helps us relate to the outside world, all right? Hold the mirror up and see your true self. Drop the facade, right? Do the real work. And if you're dependent on yourself, you're going to do it, all right? You're going to see where your weaknesses lie so you can identify them. Socially adept. All right, I wrote this one out too. How to navigate, all right? Social situations, effectively communicate, generate empathy and understanding. What else do we have here? You can turn that inward, all right? Once again, with your own struggles. Assess those things, all right? You're socially adept on the outside world. Be socially adept for yourself, all right? How would you assess somebody else with the same issues? Step outside yourself for a second too and look on yourself as if you're a stranger. Be objective and adjust your behavior the way you would with others, all right? Persuade yourself, okay? Huge, all right? That said, how can your weaknesses be strengths? All right, just self-involved. Oh, that sounds ugly, but you know what? You know your weaknesses if you're self-involved, I would argue. All right, you also won't be the one who's ill-prepared for whatever's coming your way, ostensibly at work or just in life in general, because you're self-involved. You've built up certain muscles. We just gotta project it outward in this case. Okay, you're also vain, they said. All right, hey. You've got self-care in the bag, it sounds like, because you're self-involved. It's very interesting how similar those two are. You're also having a certain attention to detail because you might be dressing yourself up quite a bit, one form or fashion. Also, you might serve as an inspiration to others because you do so well at it. But they might see that persona, that facade, and they might think it's kind of an ugly look because it's just too much of that negative. So we have to measure that. What else do we have here? Yeah, you're going to inspire confidence with as much. And also, what do we have here? You're going to achieve a certain amount of success and excellence in what you do, assuming we can direct it elsewhere, okay? So you direct so much of that stuff on yourself, hey, push it outward a little bit. Picking up on a theme with the strengths and weaknesses with you. One for looking inward, one for pushing out. Over serious. All right, how can that be a strength? What do we have here? You're reliable, determined, also stable, all right? Also consistent and analytical, and you won't be the one screwing around, all right? Unless it's prudent, I would say, all right? Unless there's a sandbox in the foyer, all right? And there's some kids in there, and hey, you got to participate in the social gathering. You got your finger on the pulse of the society type thing and when the situation's right, so you know when you can apply yourself in that respect. But yeah, I would say, yeah, it's a bad look if you're too serious about something. But I would, again, you have that muscle. You just have to know how to appropriately look at it so that you can apply it to other things. Did I flounder? Maybe a little bit. That might be just a knowledge dump or an information dump. Who's to say? But I think the idea still stands, all right? Use your strengths to overcome your weaknesses. But I say don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether because they can be strengths in and to themselves. It just takes a little bit of self-awareness, if you like, all right? That said, I think you get the idea. Let's move on to those born on this day. And when we get into those born on this day, not only we get to see who shares your company, but something I like to do is look at it from the perspective of figuring out our passions or our purpose. Because I meet a lot of folks who are just, they're time card punchers, all right? They're rolling out of bed in the morning to hit the alarm clock so that they can get to work on time, to get on time with the time punch, right? And, I know we got to put food on the table, keep a roof over our heads, but, is that all we're living for? And then on the weekends, we're just rallying to do it over again? Hey, you know what? If we had a passion or a purpose in this life, at least it'd be more fulfilling, all right? We'd know what we're jumping out of bed in the morning to do. Maybe we're doing backflips instead of rolling out, all right? And so that's what I want people to go into this kind of having an idea in their mind for. Let's see what these folks did to get in the book, and maybe, if anything, we can just plant the seed for you to start thinking about your passion if you don't have one, all right? Because I think it takes time, work, and effort in order to figure those things out, let alone chase after them. It's probably easier to chase after them once you got it figured out. That said, I think you got the idea. And if those of you I'm talking to already have a passion, well, then the hat I'm not wearing is off to you. Let's just see who shares your company. So let's dive in with those born on this day. Here we go. We start off with Duke Ellington, the jazz composer, pianist, and band leader. We also have Duke of Wellington, the British Army commander, the Iron Duke who defeated Napoleon at Waterloo. Are these people who held a heavy image? I think so far, all right? We also have Hirohito, the Japanese World War II emperor, and renounced his divine status, it says. I didn't know that. Alexander II, a Russian emperor. William Randolph Hearst, publisher, newspaper magnate, and the subject of the film Citizen Kane, heavy image for sure. Edward, IV, the British 15th century king. Michelle Pfeiffer, the film actress. We also have Andre Agassi, the tennis champion and an all-major tournament winner. And it has a quote here: "Image is everything." All right, there we go. How about that? They had to put that in here. We have Harold Urey, a U.S. H-bomb physicist and a Nobel Prize winner in the bargain. And it says deuterium, perhaps an element he discovered. I'm not sure. We also have Sir Thomas Beecham, a British conductor, Royal Philharmonic, it says. We also have Sir Malcolm Sargent, a British conductor, the BBC Symphony. We also have Zubin Mehta, an Indian conductor of the Israel Philharmonic. Shintaro Abe, a Japanese politician and foreign minister. We also have Ray Barretto, a Latin jazz percussionist and a band leader. We also have Dale Earnhardt, the auto racer and 5-time NASCAR champion an all-time money leader. Though that may have changed. The book was written some time ago. We also have Luis Aparicio, a baseball shortstop, an all-time leader in the most games and assists, chances, and double plays by a shortstop, and also led the AL in, I'm not sure what that one is, in stolen bases 9 times. I want to say like the Atlantic League, but I should know that. I don't, I know a little bit about baseball. Any event, moving on, we have Toots Thielemans, a Belgian jazz harmonica player, Celeste Holm, film actress, George Allen, a Los Angeles Rams, Washington Redskins football coach, and the 4th all-time winning percentage, it says. And we also have Robert Gottlieb, a New Yorker editor. All right. Do we recognize any names? Did they hold up to the day of the heavy image? Some of them, the ones I recognized anyhow. That said, hey, like I said, I know it's probably hard to try and live up to somebody else's accomplishments, but like I said, it's just about putting the image in your mind, all right? So if there's anything I can wish for you on your birthday, it's that you're chasing after a passion. Now, I know I messed up a few names there, butchered them if you like, so let's make up for it on my side of things. It's not, on my side of things, rather. It's not done in malice, it's just hooked on phonics. Doesn't often work for me with names, especially Japanese, French, and the like, Russian, whatever. But that said, hey, you know what? That essentially rounds out your birthday reading, all right? Except to say your season is spring, your sign once again is Taurus, of the Taurus I period specifically, and your quality and element is fixed earth. And this has been April 29th, the day of the heavy image, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider in Used Elfers. I don't know that we made sense of the mongoose and the boar and the scroll, but not altogether all too important. Not when it's somebody's birthday. That's right. That said, I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description. It makes an excellent coffee table book, especially if you're trying to hold court for, say, an evening party and get the conversation started off, for better or for worse, with an icebreaker. Hey, let this book do the heavy lifting in that respect. Though I know you got the mirror up to the social pulse and the like. But hey, you know what? Take some of the heavy weight off. Get in the sandbox. Play with the kids. Pick up the book, maybe. Who's to say? But that said, book having been related, the affiliate link for that is going to be right above a personal message I put together for the birthday boys and girls. So check that out if you're interested too. But hey, like I said again, hey, you know what? I hope you have a happy birthday. All right. And for everybody else who joined us, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves, learned something, and you join us for your birthday read as well. All right. Now, before I take us out, like I said at the top, boom, your daily numbers. Get out there and let the universe show you it's with you on your path. Doesn't have to be your birthday for this either. Hey, you can get out there and just do it whenever you like. All right. Let the universe show you it's with you on your path. That said, hey, for you birthday boys and girls, I just want to thank you for the pleasure of your time. You know what? Keep getting after it. Hold that mirror up to society, but also hold it up to yourself, all right? Drop the facade once in a while. Get down in the sandbox and play. It's well within you. Hey, you know, I know you don't need the suggestion because it's the people in the days previous that do, but hey, serves as a healthy reminder you can do so. There's no point in being phony with the folks you love, all right? And you know what? There isn't necessarily a reason to do it with other folks either. I would argue, all right? You do you, but I'm just saying. You know, you can tell when folks are being them true selves, I would say. Any event, once again, I just want to thank you for the pleasure of your time. And once again, you heard it here. Happy birthday. All right. Take care of yourselves.